Hey there, it's your Garden Ulrich again, and today we are talking about a topic that makes thousands of homeowners suffer needlessly every single summer. Picture this. It is mid-July, the sun is beating down relentlessly, the grass has turned the color of stale toast, and there you are, dragging a heavy, tangled, muddy garden hose across the yard for the third evening in a row. You are sweating, the mosquitoes are using you as a buffet, and your water meter is spinning so fast it looks like a slot machine paying out a jackpot. You look over at your wilting hydrangeas and they are dramatically drooping over the soil, looking up at you and just screaming, "Water me, bro, I'm dying here." Meanwhile, you're exhausted, your water bill is terrifying, and you are starting to wonder if paving over the entire backyard and painting it green wouldn't be a better lifestyle choice. We do this to ourselves every year. We go to the garden center in the cool, breezy days of early May. We buy the thirstiest, most delicate drama queens on the shelf, and then we spend the next 4 months acting as their personal unpaid water boys. It is madness. The biggest mistake isn't doing too little in the garden, it is doing too much, too early, and fighting nature instead of working with it. We try to force water-loving plants to survive in a baking hot yard, and we wonder why it fails. Today, we are changing the game completely. We are going to build a garden that thrives on neglect. I am going to give you exactly 7 drought-proof perennial plants that will survive weeks without a single drop of water. These are the plants that will save you time, save you a small fortune on your water bill, and cater directly to the smart, lazy gardener inside all of us. I will tell you exactly how they work, why they survive, and what you absolutely must not do to them. Make sure you stick around until the very end of this list, because the final plant is a pollinator magnet that completely changes the rules of summer gardening. Let us get right into it. Number 1. Lavender, the Mediterranean sun worshipper. We have to start with the absolute king of the dry garden. Now, everybody loves lavender. You love the smell, the bees love the purple spikes, and it looks fantastic. But here is the classic, predictable mistake amateur gardeners make every single spring. They bring a lavender plant home, they dig a hole in their heavy, wet clay soil, they dump a massive scoop of rich, dark, expensive compost into the hole, and then they water it every single day because they want it to grow big and strong. Listen to me carefully. Doing that to lavender is like forcing an elderly Italian grandfather to eat soggy oatmeal while standing outside in a freezing rainstorm. He is going to complain bitterly, he is going to get sick, and eventually he is just going to quit on you. Lavender comes from the rocky, sun-baked, miserable hillsides of the Mediterranean. It thrives on poor soil, it loves gravel, it literally wants to be baked by the sun. Let us look at the biology. Have you ever noticed that lavender leaves are not a bright glossy green? They are a muted silvery gray. That is not just a fashion statement. Those silver leaves are covered in thousands of tiny microscopic hairs. In the plant world, those silver hairs act exactly like little mirrored sunglasses. They reflect the intense ultraviolet rays of the sun away from the leaf surface, which dramatically lowers the internal temperature of the plant. Furthermore, those tiny hairs trap a microscopic layer of stagnant air right against the leaf pore, which prevents the wind from stealing the plant's internal moisture. So, what is the actionable tip here? When you plant lavender, forget the fertilizer. Giving lavender-rich fertilizer is like setting up a 5-star buffet, but nobody has cutlery. The plant literally does not know what to do with it, and it will just grow leggy, flop over in the center, and rot. Mix a handful of sand or gravel into the planting hole to ensure rapid drainage. Once established, do not water it unless you haven't seen rain in over a month. Let it bake. Number 2. Sedum, the botanical camel. Let us get to the second point. Sedum, often called stone crop, is the ultimate safety net for the gardener who occasionally forgets they even own a garden. You know those people who kill plastic plants? Sedum is for them. Why is it so tough? Sedum is a succulent. To understand sedum, you have to think of it as the doomsday prepper of the plant world. While a normal plant, like a daisy or a petunia, draws water out of the soil and immediately transpires it out into the air, sedum is busy hoarding water in its thick, fleshy leaves like a squirrel hoarding nuts for the winter. When a drought hits, the petunia completely panics and collapses. The sedum, on the other hand, is just sitting comfortably in its biological bunker, slowly sipping on its internal water reserves, completely unbothered by the chaos above ground. The lawn is out there turning brown and crying for mercy, and the sedum is just thinking, "Bro, I packed a lunch, I'm totally fine." The leaves of a sedum are thick and have a heavy, waxy coating. This wax seals the moisture inside. But here is the fascinating part about their biology. Most plants open their pores, called stomata, during the day to take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. But opening your pores during a hot summer day means you lose water through evaporation. Sedum utilizes a brilliant biological trick called CAM photosynthesis. It keeps its pores tightly shut during the blazing hot day to lock every drop of water inside. Then, at night, when the air is cool and the sun is gone, it opens its pores, breathes in the carbon dioxide, stores it up, and waits for the sun to come up to finish the photosynthesis process. It is pure genius. The rule for sedum is simple: plant it in full sun. Do not pamper it. The variety called Autumn Joy is an absolute powerhouse. It grows into a perfect broccoli-shaped dome of pale green in the summer, and then in late August and September, right when the rest of your garden looks exhausted and completely burned out, it bursts into massive plates of rust red and deep pink flowers. The bees will absolutely cover it. Just give it well-draining soil, step back, and let it do its job. Number 3. Echinacea, the deep-rooted survivor. And now we come to a true North American classic, Echinacea, or the purple coneflower. If you have a garden that feels like the surface of the sun by mid-August, Echinacea is your best friend. The mistake eager homeowners make with Echinacea is treating it like a delicate annual bedding plant. They put it in shallow soil, they run the sprinklers for 5 minutes every night, and they wonder why it doesn't thrive. Here is the reality. Echinacea evolved on the vast, unforgiving, windswept prairies of North America. In the prairie, it doesn't rain every evening. It rains hard, and then it bakes for weeks. To survive this, Echinacea uses a completely different strategy than our first two plants. While your typical garden center annuals have a root system that looks like a bad comb-over, just a thin, desperate layer of roots scratching the surface of the soil, Echinacea sends down a massive, thick taproot. It sends its roots plunging deep, deep down into the earth, cutting through heavy clay and rock, seeking out the hidden moisture far below the surface. Imagine a skyscraper driving its steel pylons into the bedrock. That is what Echinacea is doing in your flower bed. While the surface of the dirt is dry as dust, Echinacea is quietly drinking from the cool, damp basement of the soil. Because of this incredible biological adaptation, there is a very strict rule you must follow. Do not move it once it is happy. That deep taproot is its lifeline. If you try to dig it up and move it across the yard 3 years down the line because you suddenly decided you want a different color scheme, you are going to sever that main artery and the plant will sulk, shrink, or just outright die. Plant your Echinacea where you want it to stay. Water it deeply, and I mean deeply, once a week for its first season so it knows to send those roots downward. If you water it shallowly, the roots will stay near the surface to catch the daily sprinkle and you will have ruined its natural drought tolerance. Force it to dig deep. Once that first year is over, you can essentially throw away your watering can. And as a bonus, in the autumn, leave the dead flower heads standing. Do not cut them down. They look like little black shuttlecocks, and the goldfinches will land on them all winter long to eat the seeds. It is a beautiful, natural bird feeder that requires zero maintenance. Number 4. Yarrow, the feathered warrior. Let's move on to number 4. Yarrow, botanically known as Achillea. This plant has a legendary reputation. It is named after Achilles, the mythical Greek warrior, because soldiers in ancient times used to crush the leaves to pack into battle wounds to stop the bleeding. If a plant is tough enough for a Bronze Age battlefield, I promise you, it is tough enough for your neglected side yard. If you look closely at yarrow, you will notice the foliage doesn't look like normal leaves. It looks incredibly intricate, like a soft green feather or a tiny fern. This is a masterclass in moisture management. Think about sweating. If you have a massive broad leaf, like a pumpkin or a hydrangea, you have a massive surface area that is constantly losing water to the sun. It is like a marathon runner standing in a sauna. They are just pouring sweat. Yarrow evolved to reduce its surface area to the absolute minimum. By dividing its leaves into hundreds of tiny thread-like segments, it dramatically reduces the amount of tissue exposed to the direct beating sun. It breathes through a straw instead of a megaphone. Furthermore, those finely cut leaves create a tiny microscopic layer of shade over the soil directly beneath the plant, helping to keep its own root zone just a tiny bit cooler. Yarrow throws up tall, stiff stalks topped with flat, landing pad clusters of flowers in brilliant yellows, reds, and whites. Butterflies adore them because they can easily land on that flat surface to feed. But here is the trap that eager gardeners fall into. Because it grows tall and produces a ton of flowers, people assume it must be hungry. So they go into the garage, grab a big box of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, and spread it around the base like parmesan on a pizza. Do not do this. Giving yarrow a dose of high nitrogen fertilizer is like giving a toddler a triple espresso. It will shoot up so fast that its stems become weak, floppy, and completely unstable. The first summer storm that rolls through will flatten the entire plant to the ground, and it will just look like a messy, tangled disaster. Yarrow wants lean, mean, poor soil. It thrives in the dirt that your other plants refuse to grow in. Starve it just a little bit, and it will stand tall, strong, and proud, right through a 2-month drought. Number 5. Russian Sage, the Silver Ghost. Next up, we have Russian Sage, or Perovskia. If you want a plant that adds architecture, height, and a beautiful hazy color to the garden while literally laughing at the summer heat, this is your ticket. A lot of people look at their garden in late July and realize everything has turned into a crispy, depressing brown mess. The spring flowers are long gone, and the autumn flowers haven't started. Russian sage fills that miserable late summer gap beautifully. It grows into a large, airy shrub about 4 feet tall and produces clouds of lavender blue flowers on silvery white stems. Let's talk about those stems because the biology here is brilliant. Unlike normal green stem plants, the stems of Russian sage are chalky white. If you rub your fingers along them, you will feel a powdery residue. In the scorching heat of August, dark green stems absorb heat. White stems reflect it. The entire plant is essentially wearing a reflective spacesuit coated in SPF 100 sunscreen. It bounces the radiant heat of the sun right back into the atmosphere. On top of that, Russian sage is packed with highly volatile essential oils. If you brush past it, it releases a sharp, spicy herbal scent. To us, it smells fantastic. To a hungry deer or rabbit looking for a juicy midnight snack, it tastes absolutely disgusting. Those essential oils also serve a secondary purpose. As the heat rises, the oils vaporize around the leaves, creating a microscopic, dense cloud of fragrant gas that actually cools the plant tissue and slows down water evaporation. The plant is literally sweating perfume to stay cool. The biggest mistake you can make with Russian sage is in the pruning. People see the woody stems in the fall and think they need to tidy up the garden for winter, so they chop it all down to the dirt in October. That is a massive error. Those woody stems act as insulation for the crown of the plant during the freezing winter months. If you cut it back in the fall, water will get into the hollow stems, freeze, expand, and shatter the roots, killing the plant. Leave it completely alone all winter. Let the silver stems look beautiful against the snow. Then, in mid-spring, when you see me outside without a jacket and the grass is starting to wake up, that is your cue. Take your shears and cut the old stems back to about 6 inches above the ground. It will aggressively push fresh, vigorous new growth that will easily handle whatever drought the summer throws at it. Number 6. Gaillardia, the heat-seeking missile. And now we come to the things you should stop worrying about when it comes to constant blooms. Number 6 is Gaillardia, commonly known as blanket flower. Most perennial flowers have a union contract. They bloom for exactly 3 weeks, they drop their petals, and then they sit there looking like a green bush for the remaining 11 months of the year. Gaillardia does not operate like that. Gaillardia is the Energizer Bunny on a hot tin roof. It produces brilliant daisy-like flowers with concentric rings of fiery red, orange, and yellow. And it does not stop. It blooms in June, it blooms in July, it blooms in August, and it is still pushing out flowers in September. While your delicate shade plants are dramatically fainting like Victorian aristocrats at the first sign of an 80-degree day, Gaillardia is out there in the blazing sun asking, "Is that all you got?" Why is it so resilient? Gaillardia is native to the harsh, sandy plains of the southern United States and Mexico. It has evolved to live fast, bloom hard, and reproduce before the environment can kill it. It has a relatively shallow but incredibly dense fibrous root system that can instantly absorb the tiniest drop of morning dew before the sun evaporates it. But there is a catch, and this is where the amateur gardener usually messes up. Gaillardia is what we call a short-lived perennial. Because it puts so much frantic energy into producing flowers month after month, the mother plant will simply exhaust itself after 2 or 3 years and die over the winter. People panic and think they did something wrong. You didn't. That is just its biology. Here is the secret to making blanket flower permanent in your garden without spending a dime. Let it go to seed. In the early summer, you can snip off the dead flowers, a process called deadheading. This stops the plant from making seeds early on and tricks it into pushing out even more flowers. But once mid-August rolls around, put your pruners away. Stop cutting. Let the last batch of flowers turn into round, fuzzy seed heads. When the autumn winds blow, those seeds will scatter across your dry soil, and next spring you will have dozens of free, vigorous baby plants ready to take the place of the old ones. And just like yarrow and lavender, absolutely no heavy compost. Rich, wet soil over the winter will rot the crown of a Gaillardia faster than anything else. Poor soil, harsh sun, and tough love. That is the recipe. Number 7. Agastache, the fragrant fortress. Finally, we arrive at number 7. This is a plant that completely changes the dynamic of a summer garden. Agastache, also known as hummingbird mint. If you are tired of spending hours holding a hose but you still desperately want a yard full of life, movement, and pollinators, Agastache is the ultimate cheat code. It produces tall, spiky wands of tubular flowers in shades of purple, pink, orange, and sunset gold. And as the name suggests, hummingbirds will fight each other over this plant. The tubular shape of the flower is perfectly evolved to fit the long beak of a hummingbird, and they will visit it a dozen times a day. Now, let's talk about the survival biology of Agastache, because it is fascinating. Like Russian sage, Agastache uses aromatic oils as a defense mechanism against drought and heat. If you crush a leaf of hummingbird mint, you will get a powerful blast of black licorice or root beer scent, depending on the variety. This dense chemical composition in the foliage makes the leaves tough and highly resistant to drying out. The hot summer wind just glides over them without stripping the moisture away. But here is the critical advice. The one thing you must understand if you want Agastache to come back year after year. The number one killer of drought-tolerant plants isn't the summer heat. It is winter wet. Let me repeat that, because it is the golden rule of the lazy, drought-proof garden. Winter wet kills them. Agastache can easily survive temperatures dropping below 0. It can survive being buried in 3 feet of snow. What it cannot survive is sitting in a freezing puddle of cold, wet mud in November and December. When the soil is heavy and doesn't drain, the dormant roots act like a sponge. They soak up that freezing water, rot sets in, and by spring, the plant is completely mush. To prevent this, you have to think about the location before you plant. Do not plant Agastache at the bottom of a slope where water pools after a rainstorm. Plant it at the top of a mound, plant it on a slope. If you have heavy clay soil, dig a slightly wider hole and incorporate a hefty amount of coarse builder's sand or grit into the native soil to create a fast draining pocket. You want the winter rain to wash over the roots and immediately drain away into the subsoil. If you give Agastache excellent winter drainage, it will reward you with months of brilliant color and a sky full of hummingbirds all summer long, without you ever having to unroll that garden hose. So, let's bring it all together. What is the philosophy here? The philosophy is that timing, observation, and smart choices are infinitely more important than blindly dumping water and fertilizer onto a garden that isn't suited for your climate. Stop fighting your environment. If you have a hot, dry baking yard, don't try to force a lush, wet English cottage garden out of it. Embrace the heat. Plant lavender, sedum, echinacea, yarrow, Russian sage, Gaillardia, and Agastache. Let them dig deep, let them establish themselves, and then back off. Put your feet up, get a cold drink, and watch them thrive exactly as nature intended. Now, if your soil is heavy clay and you're wondering how to properly loosen it up so these dry-loving plants don't rot in the winter, you need to watch this video right here where I show you exactly how to fix compacted soil without breaking your back. Or, if you are still struggling with exactly when and how much to water the rest of your garden, click on this video here where we break down the most disastrous watering mistakes people make. If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for being here.